following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Okay.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man in Alameda, California, northern part, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, and nestled in what I consider to be, and I'm an old guy. I grew up in New York and have lived in the East Bay for a long time. It's the best city going, and that's one thing. But I'm particularly excited that I have a fellow Alamedan with me today, Cheryl Harawitz. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Ralph. It's a beautiful morning here this morning, a little chilly, but still the sun is out and it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's nice being here with you, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Well, I'll tell the audience what I told you this morning. You're a fellow author, and I recently had my first book published. And I saw a little squib. I follow your husband, and he's nice enough to follow me. And Howard Harawitz, by the way, a photographer, semi-retired. Am I correct?
I think wholly retired is probably more accurate. We indulge ourselves in whatever we like these days.
Which is good, and you have a great place to do it. In my intro, I mentioned Alameda. We were mentioned in an article that the San Francisco Chronicle, remember when we all bought newspapers?
Yes.
Probably not, but it was the morning mainstay. I'm sure it still is, and I'm sure there are people who buy the newspaper if for nothing more than the morning box scores. That's how I bought it. But you had the thrill. You put a picture on of opening the books, and it was your first look at your book. What's the book about, and what inspired you to write it?
Right. Well, the book is for a mid-grade, like 9 to 13-year-old age group. Its main character is a little girl of 9 starting a new school in a seaside town in England. And she has exceptional abilities to relate with birds and animals. She understands what birds are saying, and she can connect with animals in ways others cannot. But she also has a rather strange name, Morgwith, which came to her mother and father as a vision. And but because of this, she seems a little different, a little weird, so she experiences a lot of bullying. And her first priority at school, like any other little 9-year-old girl, is to form a friendship. And she does try to form a friendship with another little girl, Teresa, whose mother doesn't want this friendship to happen. They live in very different social classes. Her mother, Teresa's parents, live in a very upper class society, and Morgwith's parents are very working class and struggle to get along. And then because of her difference as well, Teresa's mother does not want her daughter involved with this young girl. And then there are these two mythical creatures who live on another land, and their objective is to prevent Morgwith from discovering her talents, her exceptional abilities, because if she does, she's going to reveal the secrets of nature, and that will be to their destruction. So one of them is a shapeshifter, and the other one is a master of delusions. So between the two of them, they create a lot of hassles for Morgwith. So things go missing. Her teacher's engagement ring goes missing. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Everyone thinks she stole it. So on top of the bullying, she has all that to deal with. And her journey is really to try and discover the power of her abilities. So that's what the book is all about. Somewhere along the line, she meets an old woman that she sees in her dreams. And this old woman is a kind of, she lives in a thatched cottage, in a gamekeeper cottage, and she's about 4 foot high, and she recognizes Morgwith's name and her exceptional abilities. So she starts to hear about the legend of her name. So that sort of happens about halfway through the book.
Well, Cheryl, your imagination is incredible. I don't know, what is this, your first book?
It is. I've worked a lot with kids who have disabilities, and one of the things that's always saddened me greatly is that not only do we, when we turn our backs on or ridicule people who are different, we are the big losers in that exchange, because every child or everyone I know who has grappled with being different in some way, being challenged in some way, has these exceptional insights and abilities to see the world in a different way, and experience the way they experience the world involves creativity. They have to create ways of relating with the world that are a little different. And so when we turn our backs on that, we lose so much. So that's kind of what was behind the ideas. The thing that really inspired me was my own granddaughter, who was born with no fingers on her left hand. And when I was visiting her in England when she was 7, she was attending a new school, and I watched her on the playground, and she's trying to navigate the playground and figure out how she fits in and who's going to be her friend. And at the same time, she's hiding her little hand in her pocket, up her sleeves. And I just came and thought, I've got to find a book or something to help her with this. And as I looked for a book or something, I just wasn't finding what I was looking for. And so I thought, well, if I can't find it, then I must have an idea in my mind. So I started from there. And I think the bigger theme there was our connection with people who are different, but also our loss of connection with nature is hugely devastating. So that sort of theme I worked into the book as well, and that's how I came up with her character of someone who has these abilities to connect with animals and nature.
Well, I am more interested in your next book, and because as an author, I'm working on my second. I mean, my first one was published when I was 75 years old. So, and the dream never dies. So the first thing I thought of when I was published, what am I going to do now? And has that crossed your mind in any way that I know there's the marketing of the book or the attempted marketing of the book, this, that, and the other thing, but it pales by comparison to the project that you completed, and what's going to keep you going from here on out?
Well, I've thought about it lots of times, and I certainly the book finishes up in a place where you could certainly take those characters and build another narrative, another story. That's certainly a possibility, but it isn't something I've started. I mean, I guess part of it is that, you know yourself, when you're involved in writing a book and then editing a book and then one manuscript after another, you keep going. I think I did 7 in the end. you're not really doing very much of anything else at that time. So I've sort of switched back to art and doing some other things as a bit of a relief from the actual writing process. But it's certainly a possibility for the future.
Cheryl, under what circumstances did you grow up? Who inspired you? Was it your mother, father, aunt, uncle, friend?
You know, that's an interesting question, because I just wrote I call it a family portrait of my first 10 years. A couple of years ago, actually 4 years ago, I discovered my own family on my father's side for the first time. And I didn't think there was a family. I didn't think a family existed, because the story I heard from my mother was that he up and left when I was 3 months old, leaving her with me and my 3 siblings. And we grew up in dire poverty, you know, because in those days, back in the mid-40s, there really were no social programs or networks to plug into. So we lived in a tiny little village on the shores of the St. Lawrence River in Canada. And it was really tough. She took in laundry for a living, and so I experienced, and also my father had left a lot of debt and a lot of broken promises, and they were new to the town. So, you know, a tiny little place of less than 1,000 people where everyone knows everyone. We were outsiders, and so I certainly experienced living as an outsider, or someone who was. I didn't appear different, to look different, but our family were different in that community. And, you know, until I actually wrote that piece, I didn't even realize that 2 of the characters in my book are actually people from my early years in my childhood. Mrs. Finnegan, Teresa's mother, is one of them. And Teresa's friend Lisa Jacobs is the other one. So I never even recognized that until I wrote that piece, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's Mrs. Finnegan, and that's Mrs. Racher and her daughter, Mary Lynn. Right. So writing is like that, and the writing process itself for me was fascinating, because I discovered as much about myself as I did about the story I was creating. I didn't even have the whole plot or narrative in my mind when I started out. I just started out with these creatures who are these forces that we all experience in the world, and so I thought, well, I'll just manifest those in these creatures that create problems. They will be the forces, you know. The challenges, and then I started out creating the character of Morgwith. Instead of focusing on kids that I'm experienced with multiple disabilities that are pretty obvious, I thought, I'm going to make this kid just seem like an ordinary kid, right? But she's not just ordinary, you know. There's something extraordinary about her. So that's sort of where it came from. And I didn't even know where it was going until I was actually writing, you know. Right. I don't know about you or how you approach writing. I had never written a novel before. And I didn't really, I didn't want to read a lot of children's books and be influenced by that. So I decided I was just going to wing it, and I was just going to find ways that I could get past that conceptual mind and into the stuff that's deeper. And I found a wonderful teacher, Andrew Couturier, and I connected with him and other writers, and I just started using his techniques of fooling that conceptual mind and just doing free writes. And, you know, the book is about 71,000 words. I probably wrote 500,000 words, you know, to get to those. Right. Yeah. So I think the writing process in and of itself is fascinating, because, as I say, I uncovered so much that I didn't know existed in myself, you know.
You mentioned that you wrote many more words than were were published. Was there an editing process that you yourself went through, or did you delegate it? And if you delegated it, how did you get on with your editor?
How do you mean? What would I have delegated? I mean, I did all the writing.
And who edited the writing?
Oh, I see. Well, I worked with Andy, and so he didn't do any editing. Andy was more about asking me questions about the characters. What does this mean? What does that mean? Who is Lisa? What is she? What is her character? He did more of that kind of coaching. Then when I the first draft, I just distributed to my grandkids and friends to get them to read it, to get feedback. So I did that about 3 times with different versions, different manuscripts. And then eventually I paid an editor, a very talented editor, who is also a children's a teacher of that age group. And her insights were also very helpful. So that's sort of as far as I went in terms of editing. No one really edited the book for me, but they gave me really valuable feedback.
Beautiful. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I like you so much. I'm going to invite you and Howard to a porch party now that the weather is nice, and I know you get out on the estuary and all. We're downtown, Lincoln and 9th. Come by and visit. You tell me when you want to come by, and we'll exchange books. How's that?
Oh, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like a great idea. I mean, we're pretty flexible in terms of time. You seem to have schedules to deal with.
Well, the only schedule I have is I say 12 noon, because it gives people remember that, and I remember that. And it's the only thing I can punch into my alarm so I can get here. But you're a wonderful guest, and I'd love to have you both as friends. Howard and I, like I say, we've talked. We're both from New York. We'll have a splendid time.
Sounds like it. I look forward to that. That sounds great.
Great idea.
So probably if Tuesdays and Wednesdays is best for me. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays work best for me, or Monday. That works.
I am a schedule. I write down things, and I'm away from that. How about next Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock?
Sounds wonderful. Perfect.
Beautiful. You see how life is for everybody in the audience. See how great life is for Ralph, Zig, Tycho, and I love podcasting. 3,145 offerings over a 10-year period are all archived on YouTube. So you can punch in anything you want after punching in Comfortably Zoned, and you'll get something that's interesting. That's to the audience, but no more interesting than today's guest. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Thank you.
Okay. I hear Howard in the background. Zagazun, my friend. And to the entire audience, you don't know what Zagazun is, but I mean it from my heart. And how about this? Happy trails. See you later, everybody. I'll be back when I am, Marty.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.